Hunt, fish, listen, repeat. Broadcasting from the Tazen Lake Lodge Studios, this is Sporting Journal Radio. Presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. Now here's your host, Bret Amundson.
All right, December is here. I can't believe it. Welcome to the show. I'm Bret Amundson. Thank you for tuning in on this station right here, by downloading the podcast, by streaming it on demand, or by watching the video version of this on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, and every other place that you can watch/listen to this. Thank you very much. If you like it, please like us, follow it, share it with your friends, smash that like button. We appreciate it. The more we can spread the message about enjoying the outdoors and continuing the tradition of hunting and fishing. I hunt and always will. I fish and always will. Don't let those traditions become a part of the past. Continue those traditions by passing them on to somebody new and by proclaiming your unflinching attitude towards the outdoor traditions. You can get yourself this like a really cool hoodie like this one. I hunt and always will. We got mugs, hats, t-shirts, and more at sportingjournalradio.com. Click on the store. Dan Amundson is right over there. Dan, how you doing?
Hey, good to be back.
We got a big show this week. In fact, we're going to talk a lot of fishing. We're going to talk some hunting. We got Jason Mitchell on the show. Now, we were going to have Jason on to talk about early ice fishing. He's been out checking out the ice on sloughs up in North Dakota and also around Devil's Lake. We'll find out what conditions are like at Devil's Lake. But then he went out and shot a big whitetail right before we were going to interview him. So we got him talking about deer hunting as well as ice fishing. Randin Olson from Lockjaw Guide Service in Otter Tail Lakes Country will join us to talk about ice conditions in Otter Tail County as well too, and how his muskie season has gone so far. And then Joe Henry will check in as well to talk about the St. Paul Ice Show going on this weekend in the Twin Cities, of course, and to see what conditions are like up at Lake of the Woods right now. Dan, who are our sponsors this week?
Yeah, this week's sponsors, as always, are Haybell Heights Campground and Resort on Devil's Lake. Plan a trip to Devil's Lake at haybellheights.com. Otter Tail Lakes Country, find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com. Lake of the Woods Tourism, plan a trip to Lake of the Woods at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. Tazen Lake Lodge, plan a trip of a lifetime to catch giant lake trout and pike at tazenlake.com. OnX Hunt, know where you stand with OnX. Mid-Migration Outfitters, come hunt geese out at the famous Lac Parle Refuge in our heated pits. Learn more at midmigrationoutfitters.com. And Prairie Sportsman, watch episodes anytime at prairiesportsman.org.
So it was beginning to look like it was going to be a bad year to be a proponent of a later duck season closure in Minnesota. So this year, of course, they closed the South Zone and the Central Zone at the same time. So essentially those two zones became one for the most part. It used to be a 10-day closure in the South, so technically we'd still be able to hunt a few more days in the South after the Central season closes. Well, it got real cold prior to that duck closure here that last week in November, so I was like, oh, darn it, I'm not going to be able to tell people I wish we were still been able to hunt ducks after the closure, because I want a later duck closure. I have mallards around me where we're at along the Minnesota River, late season. I'd rather shoot mallards in November and early December than teal at the beginning of September. That being said, I'll probably go shoot teal at the beginning of September. I love hunting ducks, but I would rather shoot big fatty mallards. So what ended up happening? Well, on December 1st and December 2nd, here's a video from December 2nd when we were out goose hunting. This is how many mallards we had buzzing our field while we were out there goose hunting that day. Of course, duck season is closed, and I get it. In a lot of places, particularly up in the north, things froze up early. Your duck season was closed. Not everybody's got open water. I understand that. That's why I would either like to see a longer season for us, a longer split, or some sort of river zone, or some way that we can hunt mallards later in the season. It's hard to keep everybody happy. I get that, and we have to deal with 60 days all the way down the flyway, so the people in the south have to deal with the same thing we do. But like you learned recently in North Dakota, they've got some river zones over there, the high plains units. It's a different flyway, of course, so they got some different rules. But they can hunt some ducks a little bit later, and, of course, geese a little bit later, too. And we still have a couple of weeks left of the goose season here in Minnesota, which is nice. And, of course, we still got time yet for more pheasant hunting here as well, too. And in December in Minnesota, the pheasant limit goes up to 3. This is when I really like to get out there and start, pounding the public land. Of course, at this point, the public land birds are getting pretty beat up. So there's fewer roosters out there. They've been pressured. December 1st, a lot of people head out and hit the field. Like, it was a Wednesday this year, Dan, and I was like, wow, it's a Wednesday. Maybe we can hit some of these popular spots on December 1 and not have it be so crowded because it's the middle of the week. No. There was orange everywhere on December 1st. Everybody was out pheasant hunting and in big groups. And I'm not generally a big fan of big pheasant hunting groups. I pheasant hunt by myself a lot, or Dan and I go out a lot. I like the smaller groups myself, but there was some pheasants getting shot around here on December 1st. So, that's done for a couple of reasons. Obviously, keep some pheasants on the ground later into the season here in Minnesota, since we don't have the populations that, say, South Dakota or North Dakota has. But also, you can eliminate some of those roosters later in the season and not have a detrimental effect on the population next spring, since one rooster can seal the deal with 11, 12 different hens. So good for him. Sounds like a lot of work. But three pheasants per day now in Minnesota here for pheasants. And interesting thing, Dan, I was looking out the window the other day in the backyard, and this video looked like a brood. Now, these pheasants look small to me. Now, maybe it was my perspective. I don't know. I see birds in this field a lot. As you can see, there was like a blue jay that flew into the field there for perspective. And I know this is terrible video, but there's like 10, 12 little brown pheasants running around. And Dan, you did see a couple of roosters. I didn't see them right away. I wasn't looking through any optics. I was just looking through a zoomed in iPhone there. But you thought there was some size difference between those roosters and the brown ones there?
Oh, for sure. And they were, I don't know, they just acted like spring birds.
They were running around chasing each other.
And they were small, like you said. I thought the same thing, but yeah, there were roosters out there too. The one thing I didn't see to make it a brood was like a one mom hen.
The hen,
you know. But they were all running around. They're all little, and we flushed some really small hens. Maybe they were just smaller hens. I don't know, but I don't think so. I think it was probably a late.
Boy, this is pretty late to be. 10 small brown ones like that. Right. I don't know.
It just could have been a late August hatch, or even into September if it was warm enough.
And there is a pretty sizable difference between hens and roosters most of the time. But I don't know. Sure, it looked like a brood, but it's hard to believe that there would be one this late here early December that we would see. But in any case, pheasant season's been going strong. And I put this video, where did I put it? It was on my Snapchat story. If you got Snapchat, you want to follow me, just do @Bret Amundson. You can follow me on Snapchat because I had this recipe. We've been trying out a new thing. So here's what happened. I was watching something on YouTube, and YouTube just started auto-playing. I wasn't paying attention. And all of a sudden, I hear one of those videos come on where they do like the automated voice. Like they just typed in the text-to-speech, and it's some robot lady just reading text. And she's like, first, you take the chicken, and then you put the honey on there. And that caught my attention. I'm like, oh, what is this? So I screenshotted the ingredient recipe, but lost the video, can't find it, have no idea. So I think 5 times, Dan, we cooked pheasant trying to perfect this recipe. I don't know what it's called. We ended up calling it like a honey glazed pheasant.
I think you originally called it like pheasant glazed in honey.
Yes.
No. Let's be smart about a title here. And it's honey glazed pheasant.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly perfect grammatically, but I didn't know what it was called, and I was like, well, it's a pheasant with some honey, whatever, and everyone's like, dude, how about honey glazed pheasant? Yeah. I'm like, well, it wasn't originally called that, but that's what it turned out to be. And the recipe, I don't know if you can play that video. We won't play this whole recipe video for you, but we'll kind of show you what it is. Basically, I'll just take some pheasant and I'll cut it up into chunks, and then I pat it dry. So there's like the breast, and I trim it. So I take all that connective tissue, all that skin that's on the edge. I take all of that off. I cut it up into little chunks. I try to cut it into similarly sized chunks so it'll fry evenly. But I pat it dry, and then I roll it in some flour. And then you want to kind of brown both sides of it. And I actually mix my flour with some seasoning. So that's some Tony Chachere's right there, the Creole seasoning. So I'll kind of mix that together. So it's kind of a little bit of a spicy coating that you put on it. Then I don't fry it real hot because I don't want to burn it because it's going to be in the pan for a while. So you brown both sides, and then I added this honey. And what you're supposed to do is add soy sauce some garlic cloves, some chives, I think. There were a few other recipes and a few other ingredients to this recipe. And at this time of this recording the video, all I had was honey. And maybe an adult beverage. But so I was just seasoning it with salt and pepper and putting some honey in there. And then you fry it kind of slow like that and low, and you let that sauce thicken up, and it puts this honey glaze on it. And after about the fourth or fifth time, I think we actually did it right at that point. And we went out and bought all the right ingredients, soy sauce and all that stuff. And and then I put it over some rice too. But if you're looking for a new way to try some pheasant, this is a real simple, easy way to do it. It was a chicken recipe that I found on YouTube. So look for a chicken recipe with like a honey glaze, or you could also substitute maple syrup for the honey. Mm-hmm. It's like a sweet glaze that you put on it. And man, it's delicious. It was very, very good. Got to see something the other day that I had never seen from this perspective before. But we went out with the drone and took some pictures. In fact, I made an inspirational quote out of this. If you can find beauty in poop, then you can find beauty in poop.
Sounds real inspirational.
I may have used a different word. You can always find beauty in poop if you take the time to look for it. And that picture right there is a manure spreader. And they're basically spreading that manure as fertilizer across that field. And I think that picture to me, I think is really cool. And do we have another picture? Is that the only one we got? We got one more. So that you can see what part of the field they've hit so far. They had a couple of different units. There's a friend of mine here that was out working in this field. And I don't know. It was something that I had never seen before that I thought was kind of cool. And you never really get to see it from that perspective up in the air.
You sure smell it.
Oh, man. And my drone, I took the drone out of the case a couple of days later, and it still smelled like it. So we're getting it aired out right now. All right. Very good. Thanks for watching. We've got a great show coming up for you. Jason Mitchell and Randin Olson when we come back.
852 million acres of public land, 147 million private properties, all in the palm of your hand. The #1 hunting GPS app just got better. With hundreds of custom map layers, 3D and topographic maps, you can easily scout on the road or at home before you go. And now you can get important weather details, CWD detection, and even know what crops have been planted where. Get the most trusted hunting GPS app ever made. OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. Ice fishing season is here. This winter, plan a trip to Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Not only will you have the chance to catch their legendary perch, but this year, Haybale Heights has been catching big walleye after big walleye. And they're doing it from a mobile, comfortable snow bear. No matter how cold it is outside, you're warm and toasty on the inside. Learn more and book a trip today at haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com.
All right, welcome back. I'm Bret Amundson. Thanks for tuning in on this station right here by downloading the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts, or by listening on demand at our website, or watching this on Facebook, YouTube, or Rumble. Make sure you like and follow us. Share this with your friends if you like what you're seeing. Smash that like button, as they say. And we got a couple of great guests. We're going to talk ice fishing. Yeah, but we're going to start off with a little bit of whitetail. Randin Olson from Lockjaw Guide Services with us, as well as Jason Mitchell. And Jason, first of all, congratulations on the nice buck that you shot recently.
Oh, thank you. I actually just shot it last night, so I got it hanging up here. We're just keeping it out and cutting it up right now.
So as I was telling you off the air, Dan and I were kind of prepping for this show, and he's like, "Oh, Jason just shot a real nice deer." So I was like, "Well," and I'd put a message out to you asking if you wanted to be on the show this week, and Dan's like, "Oh, Jason's deer hunt just shot a giant buck." I'm like, he's probably up in Canada somewhere then. No, this is a North Dakota deer.
Yeah, I was just in North Dakota, and I hunt quite a bit around North Dakota. I mean, I was in Manitoba last week, but I've been hunting a lot, and it's funny. I had a pretty cool, I had a really big deer, maybe 100 yards away from me, early September. And I haven't been able to get on a big deer since. And I've been starting to feel like Elmer Fudd. It's just like, it's just kind of a deer where the lows are low and the highs are high, and nothing was really going right. And I don't like to overhunt stuff and fluke stuff. I think if you hunt too much, then the deer pattern you, then you're really having a tough time. But it all came together last night and got that one. And I shot that with my gratis tag on some land that I own. I still have my archery tag as well. So I'm not done yet, but Yeah, and I could have hunted during the muzzleloader. It's muzzleloader season right now, so I could have hunted a muzzleloader last night. I thought about picking up the muzzleloader, and I thought, I'd rather shoot one with a bow. And glad I did, but I was almost regretting it because I was hunting out of an old abandoned farmstead, and I was in an old barn shooting out the window. And I shot a few deer out of that with a rifle, and my son shot his first deer out of it with a rifle here earlier this fall during the youth season. And but I'd never hunted it with a bow. And so when I got in there, I couldn't shoot to the right. And just there was like an old stall and shooting out the window. So I had to wait for the deer to get left of me quite a ways. So I had him standing at 30 yards for a long time, broadside, perfect shot. And I couldn't get that far over to shoot. And so finally he started walking away. Some raccoons came by and he started walking away. And he's walking pretty fast directly away from me, but he's kind of quartering to the left where he's starting to get where I can shoot at him. And just at about 40, 43 yards, he kind of turned a little bit and not really quite broadside, but just enough of a pump, right? 43, 44 yards. I mean, I didn't have time to adjust pins or nothing. I already ranged it. And so I was on my 30-yard pin. I've got one of those rotating sights, and I just went about 4 inches high and we got right behind the shoulder, and he went 100 yards or so and dead. So
there might be nothing, maybe nothing worse than having a shooter buck in range but not shootable. Like something that branches in the way, or something's in the way. The heart starts racing. You start to, you might start to shake a little bit. Had you drawn back yet, or were you able to?
I drew back once, and then I let off, and then when he started moving, it happened so fast. Like, here's my chance, And I tell you what, I've screwed up a lot of opportunities too by not waiting or trying to force a shot or trying to force a bad angle. Like if you don't have your 3 anchor points, if you got to stretch and lean and get funny with your body position, wait. Worst case scenario is you don't wound the deer and the deer walks away, and 2 days later you kill him. But if that deer's gut shot somewhere 2 miles away, you never get another opportunity. So, sometimes you just be patient, but when they give you an inch, you better take a mile. Also.
Absolutely. Yeah, I took a tough shot. I had one shooter so far this year that I've been able to see in the daylight, and I had a tough shot and I missed him and never saw him again. So
yeah,
I get that. So how cool is that though? I mean, that's just pure North Dakota right there to be shooting out of an old barn. Right?
I know. And it's funny, so you look at, like say pre-settlement, right? Or, before all the European immigrants came into North Dakota and farmed and ranched and stuff. And, there's hardly any trees on the prairie. And there weren't that many white-tailed deer. Then everybody, planted these old tree claims, so these old farmsteads, they're over 100 years old and nobody's lived in them for, 30 to 50 years. And just this old tree growth, and it's just great winter cover. And so a lot of times late in the year especially, these deer will yard up or herd up in these old abandoned farmsteads if there's corn or soybeans around. And that's something we do a lot, especially late season. They're pretty tough to beat.
Nothing says North Dakota like shooting a big buck out of an old barn or catching a walleye that's been hiding out in an old barn. I saw that you've been
perfect scent control too. I mean, it's just like the perfect blind. They never get tired of it. You can hunt it 5 days in a row with the right wind and never wear out your welcome. So it is when they get in there, it's a pretty deadly trap or setup. So.
Randin Olson is with us as well from Otter Tail Lakes Country. Randin, did you shoot a deer this year?
No. I've been running muskie trips up until last Tuesday. So I just put the boat away now. I kind of focused on the muskies this season. Basically went from the boat one day to ice fishing the next.
How was your muskie season?
It was really good this year. We got a lot of fish to come in. We tried some different lakes, and the amount of fish we've seen this year is probably the highest I've seen in the last 5 or 6 years.
Oh, really?
There was a lot of fish. Yeah, it was a really good fall just to get to see numbers of fish and a lot of opportunities. And the bite was pretty good. It stayed pretty steady through the whole fall. We didn't have those highs and lows like we normally have.
So when we filmed that show for Prairie Sportsman, we talked about moon phases and patterning fish, and then the 2 fish we caught were outside the majors, outside the minors. I don't think they were in either of the majors or the minors. So did you notice any sort of, I mean, obviously wild critters they're not gonna always be patternable, but did you notice any type of trend or pattern this fall with your muskies?
Yeah, so the big trend this year was if you got within the 3 days leading up to a moon phase. So you had the last 3 days plus the day of the moon phase, whether it's a new moon or full moon. Those fish would jump back into those major or minor patterns. Once you got past that moon phase, then it went back to being outside of those majors or minors. So it was kind of interesting to see that unfold this all fall. It was a cool experience. It was kind of like playing a puzzle with them.
Sure. Hey, are you going to be down at the St. Paul Ice Show this weekend?
I won't be at St. Paul, but I'll be up in Fargo next weekend.
Oh, the Fargo show, okay.
Yep.
All right. Jason, I know you're going down to St. Paul. Are you going to be in Fargo next weekend then too?
No, I'll be at St. Paul this weekend. Then I'll be at Shields Ice Fest in Eden Prairie on, I think, Friday, and then Shields Ice Fest in Sioux Falls on Saturday.
Okay. And I think I saw a post from you the other day. You were out checking some sloughs for ice. What did you see out there?
Oh, there's anywhere from 4 to 6 inches on a lot of the small lakes and sloughs in North Dakota. Some of the larger lakes are still wide open, so it varies a little bit. But yeah, we're just starting to get going. We've been just walking out. I mean, there's some lakes where you could probably take a small quad or 4-wheeler or maybe a small snowmobile. But and it's good ice. We've had some nice days like yesterday. There was so much water on top of the ice and it was so slippery by the end of the day. It didn't feel like it got that warm, although I heard down in Bismarck it was like 55, 60 degrees. But up where we're at, it didn't feel that warm. It was kind of windy all day. But we're just starting to get out. There's been some walleyes getting caught in some of the small feeder lakes around Devil's Lake. And then, there's been some people getting out and catching some fish. So
Devil's Lake still wide open?
Yeah, there's still a lot of wide open. Like north end of Creels, the back ends of the bays have ice, but you look out towards the main lake and out towards the south end of 6 Mile Bay, and you can still see open water. So,
you were talking about using a spud bar. I think was that your video I was watching? You were talking about checking safe ice.
Yeah, I love to get out, and I've been out the first one out many times. But one trend I've been seeing, and it's great that people are excited to get out ice fishing. I am too, but I'm seeing so many people, especially like on Instagram and YouTube and stuff, going out on, 2 inches or less of ice and, making videos on it. And it gets a lot of attention, don't get me wrong, but goodness, sooner or later, somebody's going to get killed, and so I think, you got to be scared of the ice. You got to respect that ice. I remember the last time I fell through, I was in my early 20s, right out of basic training, and best shape of my life. And man, I had all I could do to get out. And I can't even tell you how exhausting and terrifying it is. And so, a spud bar is just something on early ice where you can check, hit the spud bar on the ice as you walk. And if it just saves you from walking into a bad spot, and early ice obviously is the time to use a spud bar. If you're out trying to get out on Lake Superior, lake trout fishing, that's definitely a place to have a spud bar. Wherever there's current, wherever there's sketchy ice, just that spud bar is the most important thing you can have. It's more important than a flotation suit. It's more important than ice picks or a throw rope, because it just keeps you out of trouble. You just don't walk into stuff. Walking in and walking in and then drilling a hole. By then it's too late. So walk with that spud bar and hit the ice as you walk and keep you out of a lot of trouble.
Tell me about that time you went through the ice.
Well, I was actually pheasant hunting. There's a bunch of pheasants, on the edge of a coulee. There's this creek that wound through the bottom of the coulee. It's pretty deep in spots, and they're kind of on the edge, of this cornfield. And I thought, boy, if I can just slide down this creek, I can get right up behind them, because they're pheasants in December are, they're wild. They run. They won't let you get anywhere close to them if they know that you're around, And so I thought I could get in there real quietly, because there was crunchy, loud snow and stuff, and so I was sneaking along, and boom, down I went. And goodness, it was really cold out that day, and I had all I could do to get back to the pickup. It was I couldn't even hold the keys with my hand. I had to use both my thumbs. Nothing works. Your hands don't work. Your fingers don't work. I couldn't even get my keys out of my pocket. I had to finally shake my pocket inside out and shake them down the leg of my Carhartt bibs I was wearing at the time, and lay down on the ground and grab the keys with both of my thumbs like this. You know, I mean, it was just a pretty tough deal. And so, yeah, I definitely respect the ice.
I've gone through pheasant hunting a bunch of times. Nothing very deep. It's more of that I think that's the sheer terror you feel as your boots start to break through the ice and not knowing, how deep it is or what's underneath it. I filled up my boots many times, but one time we were spring snow goose hunting in South Dakota a few years ago. And we were just scouting a field, and there was a couple of us on a four-wheeler. We were ripping out in the middle of the field. There's a pond out there, and the pond had a ring of ice around the edge. Well, I had my lab with Mika, and there was like a pair of Canada geese just off the ice, and she was just kind of running around. And she saw those two geese out there, and I saw her ears go up, and I knew right away she was heading right for that. And that sheet of ice, that shelf went out, probably a good 50 yards or so. And so she got out to the edge of it and just tried to stop and slid right off and fell in. And luckily it was just shallow enough that she could touch with her back legs, and she was able to put her front legs up, but she couldn't get out. So, and I didn't have, waders with, we were just scouting. So we didn't have any gear. We were barely dressed for cold weather. And so we pulled that wheeler up to the edge, and I just went out in my boots and my pants, and I just broke ice all the way out to her. So it was past my waist, and oh, you don't want me to tell this story?
Trying to add to it.
Yeah,
you got something wrong.
So coming back, I had a trail broken for her, so she's kind of swimming back behind me. And I got halfway back, and I couldn't feel anything from the waist down anymore. And I was pretty much, to get my legs to move, I had to literally pick up one leg and lift it in front of me, and then pick up my other leg to lift it in front of me. And
when your toes get froze, it's terrible.
It was
that's a lot. That's a terrifying deal.
Yeah, that's when I finally realized. I mean, that's the closest I've come to like falling through the ice, and I wasn't falling through, but that's the closest scenario that I've been where I can understand just what that cold water can do to a body, and how quickly it can happen. So it's a very dangerous situation. Randin, have you ever gone through the ice?
One time, just up to my waist. It wasn't very deep, and I was able to I had some friends with who got out pretty quickly and got back. But it's a terrifying experience. You guys nailed it on the head. As soon as you feel that ice start to give way, your mind starts racing, and it's hard to calm yourself down and try to do the right thing to get out. And then, like Jason said, the spud bars are invaluable. You see so many people, they'll check ice the first 20, 30 yards offshore, and then they lay the spud bar back in the sled and they're walking. All the time, every year, you got to spud bar your way all the way to your spot. In fact, you probably shouldn't even take anything with you. You should just take the spud bar and a friend behind you and just walk your way out and get a good trail before you start hauling stuff out. There's no fish is worth going through and having to deal with all that.
For sure. Have you been out checking ice up there?
Been checking some things out. We're kind of in the same boat as Jason is. The big lakes are still pretty open. If you don't mind busting a tail light, you could probably still put some boats in. But the small lakes are pretty locked up. I just checked Walker Lake by my house here yesterday. There was about 4 to 6 inches on it, kind of depending on where you're at. It's seeing anywhere from 2 to 6 inches. And like I said, there's still a lot of open water. So we got plenty of time yet. We don't have to rush it.
How is it, Dan, that our big lakes that the geese stage on that we're still trying to hunt, they're froze over, but all the big lakes north of us are still wide open?
That's unfortunate luck.
It's
our
luck.
luck is what it is.
God dang. Well, I got a lot of pheasant hunting to do yet, so I'm not too excited about early ice fishing for a number of the reasons that we just discussed. But for those sloughs or small lakes that have fishable ice, say you guys are going to go after walleyes. Jason, maybe I'll start with you here. What's your first go-to? Do you have a lure you like to try? Does it depend on the lake that you're going to? Or do you have like, it's the first ice walleye I'm going to go after, this is what I'm going to use?
You know, a lot of times, we're finding them shallow, and a lot of times they are fairly aggressive if you can find them. And so, that old shoreline, like on a lot of these dish bowl lakes, there's kind of that shoreline where a lot of times it might be sand or rock in places. And then, transition to the soft bottom of the basin and it'll be just flat across the middle. And a lot of times we're finding fish on that harder bottom up on that old shoreline or shallow. And, a lot of times they're less than 10 feet of water. Sometimes it's a morning and evening bite, but, you get dirty water like up on Alice and Irvin right now. The water's so stained, you'll catch them through the day. And a lot of rattle baits, some glide baits, but a lot of basic spoons will work. And to be honest, you can catch fish if you're in the right place at the right time. You can use the wrong lure, and so the big thing is finding the right place. A lot of times this time of year I'll have the same lure tied on all week because I know it's not the lure. If I'm not catching them, it's not the lure. It's because I'm not finding them yet. And so with that in mind, use lures that you can use to find fish, because usually if you find them, you'll catch them. It's not a finesse deal. It's not a, if they find, use lures where the fish can find you, because they are usually aggressive. And so, just a lot of basic spoons, rattle baits, glide baits, fishing it with a pretty aggressive cadence, and then as winter progresses, a lot of times things will get tougher. We might have to change it up a little bit, but aggressive presentation is kind of the name of the game right now for me.
I didn't realize it until just now, but I have probably the two guys who have been the most influential in changing my perception of where to find walleyes. In fact, to find walleyes in shallower water more often, it's been, watching or listening to you two guys, Jason and Randin, to change my mind about having to go a little bit deeper to find walleyes. Randin, is the same thing? I know this summer you were finding walleyes pretty shallow in Otter Tail County there. Are you gonna target some shallower water to try to find walleyes this winter?
Yeah, it's going to be shallow again, and I'm going to try to stick there as long as I can. Aggressive is kind of the way I like to do it too. The one thing with shallow waters is, at least around here, you can spook fish if you're running around and dropping things on the ice and moving hard and fast. So you got to kind of be a little mindful of how much noise you're making. One thing I really like to do is the old style wind tip ups, the wind jiggers. I'll put a little spoon on that and just kind of set those zigzagged across that break line. And that's a good tool just to help me locate where some fish are cruising before I start setting some things up. So I'm big on movement, especially early in the year. Just keep moving. Those fish are going to keep moving. And I try to focus on some kind of a difference. Usually any kind of a rock point or weed line, little cut in the weed bed, just anything that's different in the spot you're looking to fish. Try to focus in on those areas. And like I said, noise can be a big deal. We got really clear water around here. It gets a little tough to catch them in the middle of the day up shallow. But they're there, they're cruising. Ask anybody that's sitting in a spear house. They see big walleyes all the time up there. So you just got to use your head a little bit and explore.
You think, you can spear walleyes in South Dakota. Do you think we'll ever see that in Minnesota?
Probably not.
No, probably not. No, probably not. I think it'd be kind of, I don't know. It'd be kind of fun, I guess. I don't know. I go back and forth on spearing, but I like to have the option of catch and release. That's my only issue with spearing. But all right, Randin, if people want to do some fishing with you, your guide service, you're going to be running houses all winter. How do they reach you?
Yeah, the best way to get a hold of me is just give me a call at 218-640-0158. Otherwise, you can look us up at Lockjaw Guide Service on Facebook or lockjawguideservice.com.
And Jason, you're not guiding anymore, right? You got
No.
You just got a lot of stuff going on, TV, podcast, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, the television keeps us pretty busy. I mean, that's what I did for years, obviously, is guide, and I haven't guided now in quite a few years, actually. I always say when somebody want to get tired of driving all over, I'll go back to guiding. I like doing it.
It's fun, but there's so much. I don't want to say there's a lot of pressure in it, but there's a lot of pressure in it. You gotta. I always tell people that you can catch a lot of fish or kill a lot of ducks or whatever and be a terrible guide. You know, guiding is so much more than just being successful hunting and fishing. But the same thing goes for making a television show, whether it's a fishing show or a hunting show. There's a lot of pressure to be successful on camera.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of days where we're not. I know it'd be pretty boring television some days. I mean, there's,
Yeah.
you know, ultimately, you know, we do spend a lot of time trying stuff that doesn't work just because, in my mind, you know, the most special bites you ever find is when you take risk and, you know, try things or think of things that nobody else has. And sometimes, you know, we try little lakes, for example, somewhere back in the woods that, you know, think, boy, you know, nobody knows about this. And then we get back there, and then we realize, wow, now we know why nobody ever fishes here. You know? and ultimately, we got to try a lot of different presentations and lures, and you know, we're always trying to expand, you know, our repertoire per se, you know, and so we try a lot of stuff, you know, especially with lures. You know, I mean, you got to try a lot of stuff to, you know, figure out if a prototype is correct, you know, and so we just try to spend a lot of time fishing, you know, and there's a lot of days where we wouldn't have a whole lot to film, but spend enough time and you get it done. So
I don't think people realize how much filming actually will go into like a 22-minute show a lot of times. There's a lot of unsuccessful trips too.
Well, yeah, and from an integrity standpoint, I mean, typically when you see a show, you know, we've got maybe a day and a half, in the sense that when you are filming, it does slow the day down, you know, so you, like when you're really wrapping off fish, say you're ice fishing, whatever, and the cameraman needs tight shots of this and a shot of that, and we need to get a release shot and all this different stuff, and you're looking at these fish disappearing on your Vexler, and it's like, oh, just let me get back down there. And so it can kind of almost, you know, it hurts you in a lot of ways, or same thing with deer hunting. The cameraman's on the deer and you're not, and you're on the deer and the cameraman's not, because you're sitting 5 feet apart in the woods. You know, I mean, there's things that definitely make it more difficult, but you know, typically, you know, day of fishing is what you give the show, and typically we might spend another half day just shooting underwater or shooting lures or shooting, you know, drone and landscape shots and things like that, you know, just because, and, you know, that's one thing I don't want to show is, you know, you spend 7-8 days filming something into a 22-minute show to show everybody how great a lure is. If it takes that long, it's probably not that great of a lure. You know, and I think that's important too, just from an integrity, credibility standpoint too. So.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate the time. Jason, have fun down in St. Paul, of course, and Randin in Fargo next weekend, and then Jason again, Eden Prairie Shields and Sioux Falls Shields. Good luck to you guys this winter, and thanks for being on the show.
Looking for winter adventure? Might as well pick a place with over 1,000 lakes. Otter Tail County, Minnesota is in the middle of everywhere, offers a simpler pace, and has something for everyone. Find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com.
Well, the unofficial kickoff to the ice season is finally here. I know a lot of people wait for those early ice fishing reports, but a lot of people also just wait for that St. Paul Ice Show, because that is a chance for them to go hang out with their buddies, talk about ice fishing, get some new gear, and just kind of gear up for the season and get ready for it. That's going on this weekend down in St. Paul, and Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism is down there right now, and he's going to join us here on the show. Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Excited to go to the show.
Absolutely. It's kind of that start of the season, right? Like it once this takes place, then a lot of people really start to get into ice fishing mode.
I agree with you. And, you know, this really is, I mean, there's been other ice shows around. This is the granddaddy of them all. You know, my understanding is this is the largest ice fishing show in North America. And it's really kind of neat because, you know, every year you meet people from Maine and New York State and, you know, Nebraska. And I mean, people from not only just the Midwest and the typical ice belt, but way over on the East Coast as well. And you get people coming here saying, man, I've always heard about it. I just always thought it'd be so cool to go to a huge ice fishing show, which we don't have out there. So it's a fun deal, very festive. The who's who in ice fishing is going to be there. All the ice fishing companies, different ice fishing destinations, certainly a lot of excitement. It is kind of a kickoff. I agree with you.
It makes sense that it's the largest. I mean, we're in Minnesota and we're pretty far north where things freeze up. So where else is there going to be a show like this other than in Minnesota? So when you've been doing this show for a long time, Joe, obviously people can come up and talk to you about Lake of the Woods, learn a little bit more about it. What kind of questions do you get from people that come up to you at your booth?
How's that Bret Amundson doing? Is he a pretty good guy?
Yeah.
No, I'll tell you, a lot of the questions would be like, so what's the bike going to be like, really ice? Do you guys have ice yet?
I bet that's a big one. What's
a big one, right?
Like?
Right now.
Yeah.
What
is the ice like, Joe?
never been up there before. Where should we stay? Of course, that's kind of a loaded question. I represent the whole area, and really, what I come back with there is, let me ask you a few questions. What kind of group are you coming up with? When do you think about coming up? We have different areas you can fish. We have the South Shore, different areas across the South Shore. And of course, we have up at the Northwest Angle. And, just by asking a few questions, I can help them narrow it down to usually 3 to 5 places that might be good starting points. It gets overwhelming. We have about 61 different lodging facilities up at Lake of the Woods. If you consider, sleeper fish house businesses, Airbnb, VRBOs, hotels, small resorts, big resorts. I mean, we got a little bit of everything up at Lake of the Woods, and it makes it really neat. But if you don't know the area and you don't know kind of the lay of the land, it's also a little bit overwhelming. Yeah,
I think I was surprised to learn just how many, especially along the Rainy River there, just how many guide services, resorts, restaurants, and bars, like how many of those places had all of those things under one roof?
I tell you, one of the great things, and, maybe I've said this before, but, I'll tell you, I just think it's so neat. Really, a cool thing about Lake of the Woods is that if you don't ice fish and you don't know much about it, you don't have the equipment, maybe you're coming up with a group of girls, maybe you're coming up with a group of guys that don't ice fish, maybe it's a family trip with kids, whatever. Our resorts over the years have adapted, and they have figured out how to take the work out of it and keep things super safe, super warm, and super comfortable so that anybody can come up and enjoy ice fishing. Imagine this. Imagine you go to an ice resort, wake up in the morning, have a great breakfast, and they got some just incredible breakfasts up there. They're so good. And then, at around 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning, you go out and board your ice transportation, or you take your own vehicle on their ice road, and you have directions on how far out to go and where your fish house is. So you get out to your fish house in heated comfort. The fish house, the heater's on, it's on the fish. They really move the fish houses around a lot to keep them on the walleyes and saugers. You get into your fish house, the holes are drilled. It's like 70, 75 degrees. It's like a living room. First thing you do is you take your jacket off, you get in, you get all situated, you start fishing, bring a good lunch with you, maybe some beverages. The ice guides will check on you throughout the day to make sure you're doing okay. And then in the afternoon, if you're getting the ice transportation route, they'll pick up you and your bucket of fish and bring you in for happy hour. If you're driving in, you can drive in whenever you want, and the guys will certainly clean your fish. And then if you want to, you can either cook your own fish, you can freeze them and take them home with you, or if you want, a lot of the resorts up there will cook your fresh catch. And I'll tell you, when they cook them up, man, it's really neat because every resort has their own special batter that they've perfected over the years. Some of them will cook those walleyes and saugers like a different way. They might offer you the traditional fried fish. Then they might offer you the blackened, or they might be broiled. Just a lot of ways to do it. It's just kind of a neat atmosphere up there. It's also very exciting. People are up there from all over the place, and it's just it's a fun atmosphere. But they take the work out of it so that if you don't ice fish much, you can go up there and have just an incredible time. Man, Brett, I'll never forget the time I did a video up there, and I walked around to a few different fish houses from the same resort, and it was really cool because the first fish house had a couple, and the couple was in there just, husband and wife fishing together, and And they had I remember they had Gander Mountain chairs, special Gander Mountain chairs that they brought. They're comfortable, they're big, and they had a little ledge on them, like a little shelf. And on those shelf, they each had about their 5 favorite lures that they were rotating to catch walleyes and sauger with. They had a little radio playing and stuff. Well, then I go to the next fish house, and there was a group of guys from the iron range. And they were characters. The beer was flowing, and the leader of the pack had, orange suspenders on, and oh boy, their BS was flying there. And then you go to the next fish house, and it's a family. It's a husband and wife with 3 kids, and they're picking away at the fish. So every fish house has its own little ambiance, but that's what's so cool about ice fishing.
And what else is kind of cool up there is if you are just up there for a getaway or a trip, and you're going through one of the guided services, you can just bar hop just by walking up and down it's like a college town where you can just walk up and down the road. Not that it's a college type party, but you can bar hop and go try out the different bars you can just walk to all of them along that strip right there.
It is pretty cool. And it's also kind of neat too, just to see the different feeling or different culture that each resort bar has, and each restaurant has different menus, different food options. A lot of those bars are looking at overlooking the Rainy River, so you're looking across at Canada. Some of them are looking across 4 Mile Bay. Some are looking out at the huge lake. You got some on bay. It's so much variety.
Yeah, and up at the angle, it's pretty neat there when you're out on the islands too, and you can kind of look out over it's a completely different landscape when you're up there. It's pretty neat. And Joe, at the time of this recording, the latest report I saw you share on Facebook was, I think it was from Sporties, wasn't it? They were talking about a little bit of ice on 4 Mile, but not a ton yet.
Yeah, yep. So things are forming up really nicely. So the back bays, there's 5 to 8 inches where people are traveling. I thought it was really interesting, Brett. One of the resorts posted, we got 5 to 8 inches on our trail, but one area that we know is kind of a problem area because of springs, we checked it, and there's 1 inch. Yeah. So you really need to stay in those trails, but they are starting to mark trails across 4 Mile Bay, personal resort trails, not for public use yet, because there are areas that aren't ready. But yes, they are marking them, and things are shaping up nicely. Things are shaping up nicely with Big Traverse Bay, the big open waters of Lake of the Woods. That's ice covered, and they're starting to check that as well. And just let the ice guides do their thing. When it's time, they'll certainly let you know. Stay in the marked trails, and life will be good. But man, I'll tell you this: we got a great start. We got cold weather in the forecast. We have very little snow. Things are looking up for the ice fishing season up at Lake of the Woods.
Well, they can obviously follow you on Facebook at Lake of the Woods Tourism, but where else should they go, Joe, if they want to find out more information?
Yeah, for all those resorts that we talked about, I would encourage people to explore. We have every resort, hotel, Airbnb, sleeper fish house businesses on our website. And our website is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Or go see them at the St. Paul Ice Show. Joe, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.